Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
Hate has no home here. Seems like a harmless message, but now in a major escalation following the Charlie Kirk assassination, a far-right pastor is calling on his critics to take down those signs. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rory Johnston.
And I'm Carrie Sharp. That pastor, Andrew Isker, is part of an effort to establish a Christian nationalist community here in Middle Tennessee.
Andrew Isker is understandably horrified by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But while he's calling for the left to tone down its rhetoric, he doesn't appear to be ready to do the same.
Blood cries out from the ground for justice.
In this sermon posted online, far-right pastor Andrew Isker, who's leading an effort to establish a Christian nationalist community in Jackson County, Tennessee, expresses anger over the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the response of some liberals, arguing that now is not the time for America, in the words of Jesus, to love your enemy.
This great evil must not be tolerated. It must be rooted out and eradicated.
Still, Isker takes aim at the hate has no home in Jackson County signs that have sprung up around the area, telling his neighbors that those signs, quote, mean you support violence against people you hate. He adds, if you really believe the rhetoric needs to be toned down, you will show it by putting these signs away.
We're building a town. We're building a community there.
Our News Channel 5 investigation has drawn directly from the words of Isker and his podcast co-host C.J. Engel. Isker has downplayed the murders of 14-year-old Emmett Till, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and he has declared that the very concept of racism was literally a creation of communists. He has repeatedly mocked members of the LGBTQ community, saying here that the answer is to put these people in jail.
This conversation probably has piqued a lot of interest for a lot of people. And
the podcasters have platformed guests known for spreading anti-Semitic notions, while Isker has dismissed anti-Semitism as a 20th century slur. And here in a podcast titled, Guys, You Gotta Get Over Hitler, he agreed with far-right Christian pastor Joel Webbin that Jews should be treated as second-class citizens. But like the uproar over late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, Isker argues for going after journalists who say bad things about people like him.
Media organizations who accuse Christians of spreading hate or fascism or white supremacy or whatever slurs they wish to use, they must lose their broadcast license and be subject to broadened defamation laws. Extreme action must be taken.
And on X, Isker shared a post from an account that demands declare a state of emergency. Every leftist needs to be purged from every institution, remove them from their positions, confiscate their assets. The post continues, the Democrat Party needs to be declared a criminal organization, freeze their assets, remove their politicians from office, strike down their laws. And if that sounds like Isker is ready to abandon democracy, he doesn't seem to care.
Nowhere in the Bible does it prescribe liberal democracy as God's form of government, as the ideal form of government.
As for his future here in Jackson County, Isker's words regarding those no-hate signs are ominous. Gainsboro is my home now. I am not leaving, he writes. If the hate is me and I am not leaving, no home here means the only way I don't have a home here is if someone kills me.
First, Arkansas has some white supremacists saying they're going to establish a whites-only town, and in Tennessee, you got another group of inbreds trying to do the same thing. These white nationalists, Christian nationalists, want to have their own little community there. And the guy who's leading the charge on this in Tennessee is a man who apparently has a reputation for being so angry that even his own neighbors are putting up signs that say no place for hate. He took that personally. You know, when somebody puts up a sign that says no place for hate, and you look and go, I feel as if you're personally aiming that at me, it's time for you to go ahead and reevaluate some of your life choices. Now, among other things, this guy also has gone ahead and proven that the white right understands full well that their pathetic attempts to reinvent Charlie Kirk's racist reputation isn't working. This guy's sitting here complaining, saying, well, they called Charlie Kirk a white supremacist and all the rest of it. Yes, because he was. And this guy's trying to pretend as if he's going to ride some sort of wave of Charlie Kirk populism to glory. That's the reason why it's crucial that we continue to tell the truth about Charlie Kirk, to make sure that all of his anti-black racism doesn't get whitewashed, that it doesn't get swept under the rug or rewritten. He'll be a hero only to rabid racists, but not to anyone else. Remember, the white right also tried to make a hero out of Ronald Reagan, too. How did that one work out? They figured to themselves that they can big up these guys. Sure, you'll go ahead and have the Fox News crowd, the 65 to dead demo, but as for everybody else who has an IQ above their shoe size and a memory that goes farther than a meth-addicted gnat, we won't be fooled at all. Tennessee is where the Ku Klux Klan was hatched, and we see they're still up to their old tricks. These white supremacists don't have any new material. Now remember, part of this guy's gripe was that he said media organizations who accuse Christians, I thought these were white Christians, of spreading hate or fascism or white supremacy or whatever slurs they wish to use, they must lose their broadcast license and be subject to broadened defamation laws. Talk about saying the quiet part out loud. But you know who this reminds me of? These Zionists who run around saying that if you criticize Israel, that should be considered anti-Semitic or some form of defamation. This is why we don't let these white supremacists play the game of trying to claim, well, the problem isn't white supremacy, it's the Jews. You should get together with us white supremacists against the real oppressors. You know, it reminds me when the Irish first came to the U.S., they totally forgot about all of the oppression they faced from the British back in Ireland when they got to the U.S. and became some of the most virulent anti-black racists imaginable. And yet today, when you bring up atrocities that Irish immigrants committed against foundational black Americans, like the draft riots, they'll be the first ones to rewrite the history and claim, oh no, those weren't really Irish, those were actually Anglo-Irish. Always trying to make some feeble attempt at bringing up the kind of ethnic sectarianism that they had back in their home countries, which they dropped as soon as they got here. So that's the reason why as black people, we don't fall for that whole Anglo-Irish shtick. No, those were just Irish. You see a number of the same AIPAC people who complain about anti-Semitism having no problem being all chummy with Elon Musk, who threw up a Nazi salute in front of the world. The exact same people who were raising hell claiming that college students made them feel threatened, these people had no problem whatsoever with the world's richest man giving a Nazi salute in front of everybody. In fact, they were the first ones to run and make excuses for him. And I told you about how Israelis like the famous film producer Arnon Milchan were happily making deals with card-carrying Nazi sympathizers in the 1970s in order to solidify Israel's own power. So don't let anyone run that game on you like there's some sort of divided factions of white supremacists. The similarities far outweigh any alleged differences. White supremacy is on the march, and right now the scumbags are trying to set up their own towns. And of course the Democrats are not saying a word about it. Apparently everybody else on earth has heard about it. Even the white media has been forced to report on it because it's so egregious and in their faces. But Democrat politicians? Apparently out of sight, out of mind. No Democrat prosecutor, no Democrat attorney general, or anybody in position of authority is saying that they're going to investigate these guys, or saying we need to make sure that the laws are reinforced and hardened because we can't allow these white supremacists to call themselves setting up any bases of operation. Nobody points out that these white supremacists should be considered terrorists, especially after the FBI said that the white nationalists are the biggest domestic security threat to the U.S. But then again, when it came to the police murdering black citizens, Democrats could never do anything about that either. Though they could make sure the government diverted COVID relief funds to the police, Biden and the Democrats had no problem with that. See, Democrats will be the first ones to say, well, we can't do anything about the orange man because of what's going on in Congress. We don't have control of Congress. And yet at the state level, they don't even try to pretend like that. Instead, it's just a matter of, well, we're not sure what we can do, if anything. So the problem isn't that they don't have control of Congress. The problem is they already know exactly what their role is under white supremacy, and it is not sticking up for us. And I think the situation is analogous to what Brother Tariq was talking about yesterday as to what's going on in Oklahoma. That state school superintendent, an odious individual named Ryan Walters, has announced that he wants to establish a Turning Points USA chapter in every school in the state. Now, this guy has made headlines before, always for bad reasons. He's an open white supremacist, and he's gotten into scandals before when he claimed that the Tulsa Race Massacre wasn't racial. Now, what you see going on in Oklahoma is not some novel idea.
Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? I don't see the problem.
Okay. So if you are not already familiar with PragerU Kids, it is conservative propaganda styled as educational material created for children by the unaccredited right-wing advocacy group PragerU. PragerU Kids entered Florida's classrooms earlier this year as the state became the first in the nation to approve PragerU Kids videos, like that one with the animated Christopher Columbus talking about slavery, as supplemental educational material for grades K through 12. And now it is heading to more classrooms. As of today, there is a second state now working with PragerU to bring this content into public schools. Oklahoma's Department of Education has just announced an ongoing partnership with PragerU Kids. In a statement, the department said PragerU will help ensure high-quality material, rich in American history and values, will be available to our teachers and students. State Superintendent Ryan Walters spoke with the CEO of PragerU, Marissa Streit, in an interview that was published today on the Prager website.
I cannot be more excited to get this content in our classrooms, to get this understanding of American history, without any indoctrination, but actually the facts of what happened so that our kids can know the principles this country was founded on.
If you recall the name Ryan Walters, if that name sounds distantly familiar, it is because he is a state superintendent who earlier this summer had to walk back his comments that appeared to suggest that race was not a factor in the 1921 Tulsa massacre.
The white right's been pushing this for the longest time, and the Democrats have been allowing it. This is a continuation of what's been going on in states like Florida, where they decided they were going to take Dennis Prager's propaganda and make it into part of school curriculums there. For years, I've been pointing this out, but I've also been having you ask, what have the Democrats been doing about all of this? Have they been running on a platform of, hey, we're going to get all of this right-wing anti-black propaganda out of these schools. We're going to clean up the school system and get all of this right-wing rhetoric out of it? They haven't said a thing about that, have they? What are they saying about what's going on in Oklahoma now? Nothing. Understand something. When you see Democrats like Barack Obama, who was the first politician to attack woke during the anti-police violence protest on his watch, when you see trash like James Carville and Jim Clyburn and Jim Hines, you can't trust these politicians named Jim. All of them doing the exact same thing. They're attacking the people who are merely fighting for their right to exist. When you see Democrats making it a point to demonize the black grassroots and to reinforce these anti-black narratives, to make sure that they never make crushing white supremacy a part of their policy platform, they're showing you what they're really for. They are actively playing along with the racist narratives from the right. They're offering no resistance to it. Hell, as people have seen with Charlie Kirk, Democrats wholeheartedly vote for these policies, which means they're making it clear that they will allow any policy meant to curtail, reduce, block, or stop black people from calling out white supremacy or taking action to stop their white supremacist violence. That's what this is really about. The reason that they're wholesale attacking history is because, as I've pointed out to you in the past, history is the collective memory of a people. History is whatever people are told the most often, and that's important because that determines what makes it into the social fabric. So these white supremacists have understood that all of their attempts at doing this crap about, oh, we're going to try to co-opt the 1960s and co-opt the civil rights movement and claim that Dr. King would never have been in favor of affirmative action, etc., all of that crap hasn't worked. As Chris Rufo himself put it, we, talking about the white right, have lost the culture. So that's the reason why you see them appealing to the government. It's because the people at the grassroots, they did the hard work of changing things on the ground and doing it in a way where no law is going to be able to undo it. That's part of the reason why, even in places like Florida, they were able to overturn Jim Crow-era legislation, such as making it where you couldn't vote if these white supremacists put a felony on your jacket. And that's the real problem that these white supremacists had with what they call cancel culture. The problem that they had with it was you had people at the grassroots who had found an end run around any sort of legislative or any sort of governmental office. See, the white supremacists, they're in control of those things. So as far as they're concerned, well, as long as you have to go to some white supremacist prosecutor or some white supremacist politician or some white supremacist lawmaker or judge, well, they can always just shoot it down because they're in charge. But people took control of things at the grassroots level in a way that no government office would be able to interfere with. And that's the problem they hated. Real social consequences that they had no means to block or mitigate. If you're a white supremacist, if you're an anti-black racist, nobody was going to slap you in leg irons. Nobody was going to cart you off to jail. Nobody was going to put some sort of fine on you. Instead, what happened was there were social penalties that went along with it. But you notice that it wasn't just the white right who was complaining about it. You also had the Democrats and much of the so-called white left who also complained just as much. So what does that tell you about them? Those very same individuals on the white left who thought themselves so clever, oh, we've got to stop this cancel culture. Cancel culture is just wrong. Donald Trump's showing exactly what real cancel culture is. And they're seeing that what they were whining about before, that wasn't cancel culture at all. It was simply people who had the ability to hold white folks accountable for their behavior, which is what they really resented. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he's wholesale canceling people. Those same white leftists who whined and complained about cancel culture, they're watching as these schools are being turned into indoctrination farms by the white right, and none of them have any sort of opposition to that. None of them are getting hot and bothered about that. None of them are on a warpath about that. None of them are complaining about that. All the people who have been saying that we have to vote for Kamala Harris, now those very same people are saying that they'll never vote for her. Oh, she didn't stand on business on anything. She didn't stand for any principles that they were in agreement with. Yeah, but that was less than a year ago when they were wagging their finger at us. And they were saying that we were the problem. And they were still attacking us for the first 8 months of the Orange Man's second term. It's only been in the last couple of months that these guys were sitting here singing a different tune. Up until now, it's been, see, we were right. Look what Trump's doing. We were right. Don't blame me. I voted for Kamala. Remember that crap? Remember that stupid meme that was going around? Well, now those same people, apparently they lost their voter registration cards. They forgot what party affiliation that they've got. Because now what they're saying is, oh, Kamala Harris, she's part of the problem. This is the reason why nobody wants to vote for the Democrats. All it took was the Democrats giving their response to the death of Charlie Kirk. And now all of these people who have been finger-wagging at us are singing a brand new tune. Sure, some of them were squawking a little bit before now, but they weren't in full revolt. This is why the black media is crucial. We keep you ahead of the curve, years ahead of the curve. These things that are happening are occurring because established power isn't about Republican versus Democrat. It's about the people who want power versus the ones who don't. But notice that your white liberals and other allies are never on the warpath about what's going on in these schools, unless it has to do with transgender bathrooms. Then all of a sudden these guys, they wake up. It's good that the bad guys are taking off the hoods and showing exactly who they are. It's good because all these years we've been saying the biggest threat to us is white supremacy. And we've had the usual suspects, usually a bunch of Negroes trying to get in good with the white leftists for a check, lying through their teeth and denying that all of that was true. You've also had so-called allies from the dominant society denying being white supremacists, and the rest of the society trying to convince themselves that white supremacy no longer existed. How many people mocked us for using the phrase white supremacy? Man, y'all are talking like y'all think it's the 60s or something. What, y'all think y'all is? Y'all think y'all Malcolm X or something? They used to talk to us like that a lot. That's what they used to say about us. But we heard a lot less of that kind of talk after Obama got elected, and they saw that the post-racial America was actually a post-intelligence America. And once the orange man got into politics, we haven't heard anyone questioning our usage of the phrase white supremacy ever since. In fact, we've had a lot of people who previously were doing the whole kumbaya colorblind society thing. All of a sudden, they learned how to use the phrase white supremacist after we have been doing it for several years. A lot of people hope that they could hit the snooze button, but the white supremacists are giving them the wake-up call from hell. They're being forced to admit that the problem isn't that people didn't know that they were racist. The problem is a lot of people lied about it, and even more people played along with the lie because it was easier and better than facing the reality. Because then you might actually have to do something about it. These anti-black zealots in government and in the society, they're not merely people who we have a difference of opinion with. They are psychopathic racists who will kill anyone to get power, and if they can't rule America, they won't hesitate to destroy it and everyone in it. A lot of people have spent time trying to ride the fence. But once these white supremacists started feeling their oats, that little game ran out. Now, as far as schools goes, I'm not so much terrified of the school curriculum because black people with their heads on straight understand that the home is supposed to be the primary place where a child receives their education. You don't sit there and sit them in front of teachers that were paid by the very people oppressing you, people who, by the way, you know are racist as hell, and say, well, I'm going to trust them to educate my child. Those children are going behind enemy lines every single day. It's your job to make sure that they are well armed mentally and psychologically to resist the attacks that they're going to be subject to. What people like Ryan Walters and others are doing is taking full advantage of the huge openings that the Democrats continue to give to them. Because one thing's for sure, if the Democrats acted about this whole takeover of schools thing the way that they did about abortion, none of this mess would be going on. Democrats see their job as maintaining a racial status quo. And in this instance, their job is to be the political equivalent of the good cop. Well, you already know how the black grassroots feels about the enforcement arm of white supremacy. Keep your eye on these events, not that you're going to be able to look away, but as we begin to get closer to the midterm election cycle kicking into high gear, a lot of these clowns and losers and liars who have been laying low or otherwise talking as if, oh, we see the error of our ways, the Democrats, they're nobody to support, watch as these people begin to do what they always do and start saying, well, we know the Democrats have messed up, and we know the Democrats haven't done a damn thing, but you know what? We've got to get Congress back. It's the only hope. And this time we're going to put some pressure on those Democrats. It's the same garbage that happened when Joe Biden was running for president. You had idiots who were sitting there saying, well, Biden knows he's got to do rights by us because we showed during the Trump years what'll happen if he don't. He knows what'll happen if he don't. And as soon as he got elected, was the first thing he started doing. He started going back on those feeble, empty promises that he made. He started refunding the police instead of defunding them. And he turned his back on black people. That's what he did. The very black voters who made him president, he turned his back on them. When you look at these Democrats, whether it's Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, or whomever, when it comes time to finally put their foot down on these policy issues that are actually going to stop these white right-wing attacks, none of them ever does it. It's always about what they can't do, what they ain't got. Well, you know, we got to reach across the aisle. Well, that's all they've been doing, reaching across the aisle, because these are their partners in crime. And if anybody thinks that we're going to be falling for the okey doke, well, they're the ones who have a lot to learn. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. David Williams, Leonard Cottingham, Novana Baeta, TJ, and Asfeo Dingaswayo. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.